What is microstamping? This technology is designed to engrave microscopic markings onto the firing pin and breech face of a firearm. When a gun is fired, these markings are transferred to the primer and cartridge case. The goal is to create a unique identifier for each firearm, which could help law enforcement trace guns used in crimes by examining spent cartridge cases found at crime scenes. The process of microstamping utilizes laser technology to create these tiny markings. This method is intended to aid in ballistics identification. By linking a firearm to its last registered owner, it could potentially help solve gun-related crimes more effectively. However, the reception of microstamping is mixed, especially among conservatives. Many critics argue that this technology is not reliable. They believe that criminals could easily defeat the system using common tools. This raises concerns that microstamping could create unnecessary burdens for law-abiding gun owners without truly addressing the issue of criminal firearm use.
Despite one study having a 100% failure rate, California is on track to have microstamping become the law in 2028. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for NRA certification, multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And if you like channel, like content, what I do here, you can support me with the link. Everything's appreciated. Online stores open. CGB20 will get you 20% off, free shipping. Connecticut residents, you got to pay that sales tax. I have no say in the matter, but CGB20 will get you 20% off. Let's talk about this. And this is, once again, another subject I've been talking about for years. And this is the infamous microstamping ideal. Certain states have pushed this, California, New Jersey, Connecticut being one of several that have done so. But the problem was, and still is actually, is the technology does not work. It fails more times than it actually works. Yet, California implemented this to become law in 2028. Now the Attorney General's office out there has put together a study claiming that this is viable technology, and we're going to go ahead and implement it in 2028. And we want all you companies that do this to get on board and start giving us bidding prices so we can make sure you comply with state law. Only problem is that once again, as they always do, the AG out there in California twisted the data and was using information that was dated from 2008, even though there are studies after studies that prove that microstamping failed more than it worked. So why are they doing it? Once again, this has nothing to do with nobody's damn safety. It is about keeping the Second Amendment out of the hands of the law-abiding, to make it harder and harder for people to do business in California as far as gun manufacturers go, because now gun manufacturers are going to have to start making microstamp guns in order to be able to sell them in California. We always ask the same question. What does that have to do with crime? Nothing, because it's not about crime, nor is it about preventing crime. What is microstamping? We should know this by now. The concept is that the firing pin has the serial number and other identifying information. It's when the firing pin strikes the primer, it imprints that information into the primer. Casing's left behind. The police can magically come along, pick up the casing, read the little stamp on there, and figure out where the serial number of the gun and where it came from, who purchased it, so forth and so on. Only problem is, once you switch out the firing pin, all that information is null and void. Once you take a file and file off that information from the head of the firing pin, the information is null and void. It is flawed technology. But California manipulated their data so that they could go ahead and push forward with their 2028 marker date to start implementing this kind of technology. Let's come into here. California is scheduled to turn on microstamping pistol mandate. The California Attorney General's office has determined that the controversial process of marking shell casing to a gun is viable. Now, this microstamping has long been proposed in the state, going back to Arnold Schwarzenegger's time as governor. but has just as long been considered unattainable. The requirement for semi-automatic handguns to mark cartridges with microscopic or red characters, which identify the make, model, and serial number of the pistol, has been dormant in state law, but a recent report commissioned by the California State Department of Justice contends the technology is now mature. Quote, based on this investigation, the DOJ has determined that it is technologically viable for microstamping components, engraved firing pins, to imprint a unique microscopic array of characters referred to as a microstamp on spent cartridge casing, discharged by a firearm into which the microstamping component has been installed. Reads the report in part. The DOJ also concludes that engraved firing pins can impart a legible microstamp on expanded cartridge casings with regularly, including after sustained or repeat firing. Now, immediately, if you change the firing pin or file the information off the firing pin, this is null and void. But firearm industry people are saying that this is not viable, this is not going to work, and it's just going to raise the price of firearms or prevent gun dealers from doing business in the state, which is really what they're after in the first place. It is beyond comprehension how California's Department of Justice determined that microstamping technology is viable when so many studies, including those by microstamping patent owner, have demonstrated that it isn't. Now, here's a good point. The patent owner for microstamping is one person. That means one person controls that entire industry of microstamping. Do you not see a problem with this? Which means the prices set are based on this one patent owner's discretion, which could price guns out of the hands of the average person. Said Mark Oliver, Public Affairs Director with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, microstamping, even in ideal laboratory conditions, cannot deliver decipherable and repeatable alphanumeric and gear code combination that could be used. This is a breakdown of different studies that were done. In 2006, the Association of Firearms and Tool Mark Examiners, the Professional Society of Firearms Examiners, demonstrated that the technology doesn't function reliably. That study showed microstamping failed 50% of the time. That study also showed that NSSF has explained as the obvious. Microstamping can be easily defeated by swapping out the firing pin or using crude tools to obliterate the code on the head of the firing pin. 2008 UC Davis study showed that microstamping for rimfire cartridges failed 100% of the time, and a blind study of centerfire cartridges showed only 20% had legible codes. That study, conducted to assist lawmakers in determining if microstamping was viable, determined the patented technology is flawed and not recommended for mandate. 2012, Todd Lizotte, a microstamping patent holder, joined the ATFE in another study that showed none of the firearms and cartridges combinations were able to achieve a complete microstamping transfer. The guy who invented microstamping says this thing doesn't work. The authors noted that even firearms optimized for the test provided random results. Lizotte said in the study, legitimate questions exist related to both the technical aspects, production costs, and database management associated with microstamping that should be addressed before wide-scale implementation is legislatively mandated. Follow-up study was conducted by the same ATFE researchers in 2013 that used $70,000 of microscopes not commonly available to police departments and found full gear codes appeared to be rare and dependent on the weapon that made the impression, which basically means they used microscopes to look at these casings that the police would not have access to and found that full codes where they could actually read the serial number, read every bit of information from those casings was very rare. Last year, New Jersey Attorney General Matt Platkin released a microstamping viability report, which also involved Lizotte. In that test, 50 rounds were fired and 10 spent cartridges were collected for testing. Only one of those delivered a full alphanumeric code transfer, one, showing a 90% failure rate. But let's come out of that. So with all this known information, some of it from studies from 2012, the California Department of Justice went back to reports from 2008, used images from that report to claim in 2025 that this technology is viable and will be implemented. This, of course, is going to lead to a lawsuit. But once again, California doesn't care because they use taxpayer money to defend their bad laws. So it's nothing to them to go out and spend other people's money to defend something that's not viable and doesn't work. But let's get down to the nitty gritty and the truth of the matter. This is about curtailing the Second Amendment in California by implementing technology that we don't have a base price for, that could be anything from $100 to $1,000, which will increase the price of firearms that are being sold in the state, which will prevent the average person from exercising that right due to financial reasons, which is a violation of the Constitution. But this is California. And just remember, this clown of a governor out there wants to run for president. Can you imagine? But this is going to lead to a lawsuit. Hopefully this will be overturned, but they are going to implement it. But it's not going to change the face of crime, ever. None of these things ever do. But this is the frustration of dealing with impotent leaders who have no other drive than to push through their agenda, which has nothing to do with your safety. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time the video goes live. I'll see you on the next